I'm here with Jordan Corell and Seth Quackenboss, two young men whose experience at a Donald Trump rally 2 days ago has since gone viral. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
So, Jordan, you were the one to write up your experience and post it on Facebook. Were you at all surprised by the reaction that you've gotten?
Oh, definitely. I wrote the post, and my initial thoughts were, I'm going to write this, and then my friends will see it, and that'll be the extent. And then people started asking if they could share it, but it was also my friends on Facebook. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And then the next thing I knew, it had been shared over 100 times, which is pretty monumental. And then I woke up the next morning, and it had been shared over 1,000. And that's when I knew that this was not going to be your ordinary post.
Now, when I last looked at it, it had been shared more than 143,000 times. And didn't show any signs of slowing down. Responses to that took up so much room on your Facebook wall that I actually never made it out of 2016 down to 2015, and I scrolled for a very long ways. Would you say most of that reaction has been positive? Has there been a lot of hate? Have you gotten hate mail or hate posts?
Most of it, yeah, has been positive. I don't think I've gotten maybe one or two comments that were negative. Most of the messages that I've gotten directly have also been positive. People have tried to have discussions with me to tell their point of view, but it hasn't been in a hostile way. I really haven't received anything hostile.
And you, Seth, have you received any kind of negative feedback as a result of this?
Almost none. Maybe a handful, but it was clear upon reading that they thought we were Trump fans and like when we called us racist and all sorts of stuff. But it's been overwhelmingly positive. We've got a lot of really touching stories that would be a lot more of an impact than we thought the post could ever have.
Well, I mean, it seems like maybe you may have changed some people's minds. Seth, can you tell me in your words, because Jordan actually, he put his experience out there for the world to see. What would you say in your words was what your experience was like?
Well, we drove 3 hours for the rally, so we had a nice long car ride on the way back to discuss everything that happened, and we realized we were on the same page. We got there, and we went there because we thought it'd be entertaining. We were just curious as to how this could go. Like, we had never been anything like that. We'd only seen, or we only heard what the media said they were like. So we wanted to go for ourselves. And we got there, and some of it was comical, but then Trump came out, and he began speaking, and the hatefulness of the crowd spiked, and they were loud and raucous and hostile, really. They were like ready to riot at any moment, and that's when I knew this wasn't any fun. It was very, very grim, but Jordan pretty much nailed all of it in the post.
Really, ready to riot at any moment. Would you say that? Really? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
That's kind of frightening, really. Yeah.
What I noticed was that anytime there was a protester and things were about to get out of hand, the crowd was immediately ready to jump on it. So yeah, they were ready.
Okay. Now, Jordan, in your post you wrote, quote, "Of everything I saw, the crowd was the worst part. I've never seen more hateful people in my life." You added that whenever a protester had a sign, it would get torn away from them, and the crowd would yell horrible things. And would you tell me what sort of things people in the crowd were yelling?
You had your generic, get them out of here, and then like, we don't need them here. But then there were a few times they escorted a young woman that looked like she was dressed as, say, a hippie almost, and crowd members. What did you say? I didn't hear it.
There were
exactly.
a lot of shouting, especially towards people that were unlike most of the supporters. A lot of shouts about drugs, welfare, jobs, stuff like that. Very, uneducated thoughts.
And like, the comments were like, go home to your mama, like, go cry to your, like, it was just very childish.
Even Trump actually made a comment saying that all the protesters were just spoiled kids and they could go home to their mom. So, yeah.
Interesting to note that Mr. Trump started his business with a small loan of $1 million from his father, right?
Never more than that.
Yeah, not much. Now, you mentioned also that a man was removed from the crowd just for wearing a T-shirt, which actually didn't even criticize Mr. Trump. It just said, "Love is the answer," which is a T-shirt I might see at the mall. He wasn't causing any kind of disruption, is that right? Okay. Go ahead.
As far as I can tell, all he did was stand up.
Okay.
He just stood up. I don't know if he had a sign. He was on the other side of the venue, and we couldn't see if he had a sign or if it was taken away immediately. But
Okay.
as far as we could tell, he only had the shirt. And
So he was
stood up.
he was wearing a T-shirt. He did stand up. Okay.
Yes, he did stand up.
All right. And then instead of asking the security not to overreact to somebody who wasn't being boisterous, Mr. Trump has made some statements like the protesters are bad dudes, they're dangerous people, and they need to be dealt with the way that you deal with dangerous people. But it sounds to me like this guy was simply standing with a T-shirt on, maybe holding a sign, wasn't causing any kind of loud, boisterous destruction, certainly wasn't throwing punches at anyone. But instead of asking security not to overreact in the instance of someone who clearly wasn't a bad guy, Mr. Trump instead made fun of him from the podium and suggested that someone like him wasn't likely to find love. What were your gut reactions to hearing that?
After I heard that, my initial thought was, really? Can you say that in front of all these people? Can you say that at all? That was very,
It was used as a cheap laugh from the crowd, for sure.
Would you say that it's political correctness to expect people not to speak that way, or just politeness?
I would just say not saying that would be considered being a decent human being.
Yeah.
Okay.
And whenever he said that, it went against all that. I mean, you realize that was the first time I think that you saw his true colors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Speaking of the true colors, you wrote in your post that at one point a woman seated not far from you responded to a protester being taken out by saying that hopefully Mr. Trump would get rid of them all, referring to anyone who really just didn't agree with that particular brand of ultra-conservative ideology that Mr. Trump has been espousing. How did that make you feel?
It was sickening. There was no allowance for any other mindsets. The first sign of any sort of protest, whether it be completely silent and subtle, the protesters were ready to pounce on it. They gravitated toward it. It's like they were looking for it the whole time. And every single time, Trump would stop and he would just watch the chaos unfold. He would watch the police come in and pull people out. And he wouldn't start until it calmed down again. In fact, he made several comments saying how much he loved the protesters as they give him publicity, and which I thought was, an absurd comment.
Wow.
These protesters, they're subject to a lot of danger. They're not peaceful. They're not peaceful the protesters, for sure.
You mean the crowd is not peaceful to protesting? Yeah. Okay. And earlier when you said that they were ready to pounce, you meant that the crowd was ready to pounce upon the protesters, or the other way around?
The crowd was ready to pounce upon the protesters.
I just wanted to be clear on that. Now, you closed the post that went viral by saying, quote, "I implore you, if you are thinking about voting for Trump, reconsider. You are only promoting chaos and hatred." Now, this is a little difficult because, it may cross the Godwin's line law a little bit, but a lot of people are saying we're in a place now where we need to do that. In fact, a lot of people are comparing Mr. Trump to fascists like Mr. Mussolini or Mr. Hitler. Americans often wonder, when it comes to the events that led up to World War II, how the German people could have allowed someone like Adolf Hitler to come to power. And as these kinds of comparisons are made, a lot of people are wondering if we're in such a moment now. And it's one of the difficult questions that I think a lot of the mainstream media are afraid to ask, because of the connotation that means that the whole discussion has lost its relevance. But at the same time, we have a lot of very prominent people making that comparison, including Sarah Silverman, who recently went on late night TV in full Hitler garb to try and make that same point. So I think it's fair to cross that line at this point. So let me ask you, you said Trump voters would be promoting chaos and hatred. After your experience, do you think we could be living in that kind of time now, the same sort of environment in which Germany was in the early 1930s?
I would say so, because these people, they are angry. And I don't know exactly what they're angry at. Maybe it's something completely unrelated to politics. Maybe they've always been angry. And now that Trump is promoting and he's out there, he is saying these things, it is okay for them to express their hatred in this manner. These people are very convinced by what he says, and they're willing to go along with it. And I think because they harbor this animosity towards a lot of people, anyone that doesn't support Trump, it makes it a lot easier for them to just go with whatever he says. And I feel like that is the way that Germany was pre-World War II. They were ready for anything.
Okay, so when you say large groups of people, in Germany, the scapegoat class was Jews at first, and then other groups like Catholics, and in many cases the poor. Would you say that, today we're looking at scapegoat groups in minorities like African Americans, like Hispanics, like religious minorities like Muslims, who in many ways are targeted because of 9/11? Would you say that the same sort of scapegoating of whole classes of people was on display there, and those were the kinds of people that this group of rally goers, if you will, blamed in the abstract for whatever it was that was making them angry?
Yeah. I don't think there's not going to be a mass genocide like you saw in Germany. This is much more of a mindset. It's just complete hatefulness of a mindset. They're setting out to belittle, absolutely, and which is horrible. I mean, nothing good will come from this. It only breeds more anger and hatred and more division between all people.
Mm-hmm. Now, and then, by the way, it's very courageous of you to say that. So tell me, in closing, if you would have had that same opinion before you actually went to this rally, or has seeing it up close and personal in person brought home to you the seriousness of it?
I knew, I had a feeling. I had a feeling from clips I've seen on media, videos I've seen on the internet, that it was bad. I didn't know how bad. Like we said, we went down there as a joke, as a sort of, what sort of ridiculous thing can we get into today? Hey, let's go to a Trump rally. It's only 3 hours away. And then, like I said in my post, I was expecting some laughs and some like, this is ridiculous. And then for the last 30 minutes, I sat there and thought about everything that was happening. And it was grim. And it was serious. And I feel like if I had gone into it knowing how terrible it was, I would not have been as shocked. But I think because I was so shocked, it caused me to write this post using the words and the examples that I did.
Well, it certainly struck a chord with a lot of people. You know, as I said, the last I checked, over 140,000 shares. That's not likes and comments. Each one of those shares has many, many likes and comments. So if you were to add up the total number of people that have interacted with your post, it would be many orders of magnitude of that 140,000. So potentially reaching millions of people. That's really quite something for there to be that strong of a reaction to a post made by a guy who went to a Trump rally. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So, I want to thank you both for taking the time to speak with me and with our readers, and thank you for shedding light on something important and taking an active role in your democracy. One last question: who are you going to vote for?
I already voted, and I voted for Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Okay. And when it comes to the general election, will you be supporting whoever is the Democratic nominee, or if Mr. Sanders doesn't get the nomination, does that make you more open to voting Republican, I guess, if Mr. Trump isn't their nominee?
It definitely depends on how it plays out for me. I'm not strict Democrat, strict Republican. I don't care. I'm anti-Trump. Don't agree with anything he has to say, but the other candidates are at least respectable. So I'm not going to close off any doors.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If there's a Republican candidate that matches my values and what I believe, then I would definitely vote for them. If the Democratic nominee matches my values more, I would vote for them. I'm very open to whichever one.
So you would say that you are, you know, you're not just Democrats. You are just looking for the right candidate. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
We just like to be informed and apply our information to our vote.
All right. Well, listen, thank you, fellas. Have a good rest of your evening, and thanks again for taking the time to interview with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah.